We go through the top defensive free agents next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube and rate the show 5 stars if you're listening to the show on podcast. Hey, pal, it's here tomorrow, the 13th, the first day of legal tampering window. How does it feel, my friend?
It feels pretty good, Brett. I mean, we've had excited. This is like when the offseason's really starting now. I mean, we're seeing the trades that just happened, and then now free agent starting basically is beginning now. So it's really exciting, and I'm pumped because now we have the biggest budget still, even after our trade, and I'm definitely expecting Ryan Pace to. Or Ryan Poles. To go out and spend some money.
So you weren't on the show when we did the breaking news. What is your vibe? Like, how do you feel about that trade now that it's kind of like sunk in with everything?
Yeah, it honestly, I think the more and more I just think about it, I check news on it like every single day since that. Like, I just can't get enough because I'm so happy about that trade.
Yeah.
I think it was. Like when you really get in the detail of it, it's like that was a 10 out of 10 trade. Like, sure, you wish you could have got like a better second round pick. Because it's like a 60, it's a higher second round pick. But yeah, I think getting a number one receiver at that price, like,
yeah,
it was just so it just made so much sense. And like looking back, I was like, oh yeah, like. He kind of hated playing in Carolina because he never had a quarterback. So I bet for him, he's excited to be like part of a franchise that's doing so, going in this uphill progression, So
yeah,
I was so excited.
Yeah, and I recap my feelings on that. So if anyone's curious, you can just watch that. But yeah, I think a big thing that I brought up with that was you did this right before free agency. Now there's more stir. Now there's more energy about the Bears heading into free agency. And so that's where today we broke down offensive ones. And if only we flipped it, if only we flipped these episodes, because now we're going through the defensive people. Now we're going through what could they do with this defense on Monday. And just so people know, legal tampering period starts at 12 p.m. Eastern time, March 13th, which is Monday. Depending on when you're listening to it, it's either today or tomorrow. But basically, legal tampering is starting, and that essentially triggers everything. And it goes up until Wednesday, March 15th at 3 p.m. when those deals can be made official. So big time, epic time. We're going to see what the Bears can do in free agency. I mentioned this before. That's where Ryan Poles needs to prove what he's able to do in this free agency. It'll be very interesting. But we already have some action in the comments with some of these pieces. The Washington, right? Washington just made a big move maybe a couple hours before we are recording this. Dre'Mont Payne. Payne signs a 4-year, $90 million contract that's richer per year than an Aaron Donald. And now people are probably looking at this going, all right, like what's going to happen to this defensive tackle class, right? Because we're already talking about potentially paying a good chunk with Javon Hargrave as kind of being seen as the number one defensive tackle in this free agency. And he was projected to get about $18.5 million. And then I know at Spot Rack, they're saying $20 million. Now is that going higher? Now is that going through the roof? Now is he getting 22.5 when arguably he's not as old? I mean, he's older than Dre'Mont Payne and arguably probably less productive, you would say. I guess, PayPal, what are you feeling with that? Did we just get screwed by Washington?
Yeah, it definitely hurts, but honestly, I was kind of like expecting this to happen. I mean, watching they need that defense of presence, and he definitely is a valuable player. I think some like Chase Young is kind of someone that's been up in the air in Washington just because his injury concerns. But with Payne, he's been productive. He's been someone that they can trust on the defensive line. So I wasn't honestly too surprised. It sucked when it happened because there's still that optimism of being able to get him and 25, turning 26. But yeah, it was kind of like we would have gotten really lucky if he was still available. But I I think Javon Hargrave, he is very elite, but yeah, his price is gonna rise now. And two, it's kind of that almost, is he really that good? I mean, he just played with an all-star defense with insane front seven. So it's like, does he look even better because he has all these other guys around him? Um, and yeah, he's on a Super Bowl, team. They didn't win, but they played in the Super Bowl. So it's like he looks honestly a lot better than maybe he is, but doesn't mean he's bad. He's still really good.
It's always hard too, right? Like if you're getting a lot of single teams, and I watched Javon Hargrave and some of his tape before, like while preparing for this, and the guy's good, right? Like there's an
Yeah.
obvious reason why he's voted as one of the top, or seen as one of the top available free agents this offseason, because he's good, right? And for those that don't know Javon Hargrave, defensive tackle for Philly, and he's about 30 years, or just about turned 30. Let me see if I can actually pull up his birthday. Yeah, just a month ago turned 30. So he's definitely up there in age. D tackles can last a little bit longer, but last year PFF charted him with 11 sacks. The year before that, 8 sacks, then 6 sacks, and had a lot of production for Philadelphia. And like you were alluding to. So that's why he's really kind of seen as that great player that's coming out and has done a lot. But let's actually look at all the defensive tackles. And just like last time, for those that didn't listen to it, all of my numbers I'm getting from Brad Spielberger, who is one of the best cap experts out there. So I just kind of grabbed those numbers, threw it out into here. And if you have a problem with the numbers, you can bring it up with him at PFF Brad. I grabbed those numbers, threw it out here because he is the expert. And what we're seeing is there's really kind of 4 high-priced defensive tackles out there, according to him. So Javon Hargrave, like we were saying, might be around that 18 to, I think after this, over 20 million a year seems to be kind of the going rate for him. Then we have Dalvin Tomlinson at about projected 11.75, Dre'Mont Jones at around 17, 18, kind of in the upper teens, and Zach Allen in kind of the lower, potentially 12 million. I've seen like 9 million out there as well. But when you go to the mid tier from the 5 to 10 million, you have David Onyemata, you have Sheldon Rankins, Larry Ogunjobi potentially. I've seen him everywhere from mid to low. Matt Ioannidis, Morgan Fox, Poona Ford, and Fletcher Cox. Fletcher Cox, another one kind of all over the board. I think ultimately he goes with the Eagles. But some of the bargain bins, a huge list. I'll just fly through it. A'Shawn Robinson, Jerron Reed, Greg Gaines, Taven Bryan, Dean Lowry, Kalen Sanders, Akeem Hicks, Chris Wormley, Shai Tuttle, Andrew Billings, Jerry Tillery, Derek Nottie, Kerry Hyder, and Isaiah Buggs. Lots of D tackles out there. PayPal, who's kind of like jumping out to you, and what do you think ultimately the Bears do?
Yeah, big one that just jumps out. Larry Ogunjobi. I don't even want to let's not get him. Don't even look into him. I mean, he failed the physical. He didn't really have that good. He didn't produce very much when he's on the Steelers, I believe. Didn't really produce much. Like he was overpaid, and don't really want to look at him. Something that does jump out at me though, Brad, is seems like kind of the top 2, you look at Javon Hargrave now and Dalvin Tomlinson, they're kind of older, and that may be something that plays a factor of being a benefit to this team or negative, because I mean, they're older, but that can also bring some leadership or to these young guys, all these young guys on the defensive line. If we get like a rookie, say, so to speak, like Will Anderson on the edge, or get a Jalen Carter or someone next to one of these veterans. So I'm not too opposed. I love Dalvin Tomlinson. I mean, when he's on Minnesota, like he just you know me, Brett. I love big linemen.
You love the fat boys,
I
pal.
love
We
fat
know.
boys.
You love the fat boys.
I love the fat boys. And something about him, like
Yeah.
you think this fat guy is probably just, he's just gonna be a run stuffer, but he's notably one of the best pass rushing defensive interior. So that's someone. He is 29, and that's why you kind of have to look into him. But I almost think of that as like a benefit of like maybe that would be a nice piece having that veteran present on the defensive line, because I don't know if we'll get that veteran presence from the edges or any other spots. So maybe we do it with the Dalvin Tomlinson.
I love Dalvin Tomlinson because he's a reasonably priced free agent at the D tackle, like projected to get 3 years, 11.75 million. And when you look at everybody else, when you look at a Dre'Mont Jones, right, who's projected to get upper teens, like we were saying, and Javon Hargrave breaking 20, that's where Dalvin Tomlinson, he's really good. Like he's not like unbelievable, like, oh my God, he's gonna wreck the game, but he's like such a good, solid player. PFF has him as the 14th best defensive tackle last year, 16th in 2021, and 25th in 2020. So you watch him, he can play the 5, he can play the 3, he can play the 1, he can play all over the line too. They had him playing 3 technique in Minnesota, and yeah, that's not his natural position, but he was still able to do that. I think Dalvin Tomlinson really allows you to then look at maybe a Dre'Mont Jones, maybe look in the draft too for double A's. I'm not gonna Adibare out of Northwestern, where he's super athletic, might be a good 3 technique in the second round, third round, depending on where he ends up falling. I think ultimately second though. Dalvin Tomlinson, I really like it. And
yeah,
I totally agree. He is a darling of the show.
Yeah, I think we have to get one of those. I'm fine with Javon Hargrave. Might be kind of that overpriced guy, but yeah, Dalvin Tomlinson, Dermonte Jones. I haven't really heard about him, but yeah, just kind of watching some stuff on him and seeing things, like he's a freaky good pass rusher, and same with Zach Allen. Like great pass rushers, and you can see how much not having Akeem Hicks on this team or having that just all-star D tackle, really affect the run game and not just the run game, but the pass rushing game, and getting that interior pressure. So to be able to get that pass rush from the inside is huge. And like getting someone like a defensive tackle like this, we can still put, Jalen Carter, we can put a rookie alongside one of these guys. And with Dermonte Jones and Zach Allen, if we do want to go that younger, develop with the team, longer contract, maybe go with them, because Dermonte Jones 26 and Zach Allen is turning 26 as well. So
Dre'Mont Jones is really interesting, and I saw up in the comments. Let me just pull that up. Torin is saying, "Hey, Dre'Mont Jones, there's a lot of mutual interest with the Browns in him. That's the rumor going on right now." Yeah, like I think that us Bears fans, we're quick to throw Dre'Mont Jones as like a bear, right?
Yeah.
And I think realistically, it's just he's got a lot of talent, he's got a lot of skill. But yeah, I'm not in love with him. I'm not over the top with him. I just feel like if you're going, get some solid pieces. If you're investing that heavy in him, that's where I get a little bit nervous about him. I'm not a huge Dre'Mont Jones fan, because you're really kind of banking on upside for a 26-year-old is really what like everyone's saying. Like just wait, right?
Yeah,
When you got the just wait, it's always nervous. It's always nerve-wracking.
We don't want that for that team. We're not waiting now. We're on that. We're accelerating. We're on go right now. So that's where Dalvin Thomas, I don't want to keep going back to him. The only thing that does scare me is I don't know the exact age. I was trying, because I think Akeem Hicks is like 33 or so right now. And, basically after last year, 2 years ago, he really kind of dropped off. And maybe that was because Khalil Mack was kind of out, and people were getting a little older on the team. But that's the one thing that kind of concerns me with getting, someone's turning 29. Like, how many years do they have left? I don't think it's going to be like this year, but is it going to be, the year after that, or is it going to be 3 years down the road? So, hey, I mean, if it's 3 years, that'd be maybe a good 3-year deal we sign with him and send him off his ways when he gets old.
Yeah, yeah, for real. So I have someone else that we haven't really talked too much about, and that's David Onyemata. PayPal, I don't know if you saw him. He's been good. Like, he was good for New Orleans when he was on roids. Like legit. The dude was on roids, and he just freaking balled out in 2020 and 2021. He gets off the juice, and all of a sudden his production just plummeted. So you look at him and you're like, all right, here's a guy who's 30 years old and projected to get about $7.5 million a year, right? Like, you just want to be like, are you actually legit? Or was that the roids talking and like gave you all that production? So he's someone that I'm interested to see how the market shapes for him. But one of my favorites, and actually there's someone like one of my favorites out there is actually Matt Ioannidis. I'm a big fan of him. I do like him. I think he gets to the pass. He's a great pass rusher. He gets to the quarterback, and I think you can get someone like that fairly cheap, right? You could get someone like that, and maybe you break the bank with Hargrave, right? Or you get a Dalvin Tomlinson, or then you draft somebody else. But I think Ioannidis gives you a good foundational piece. And we haven't even talked about Justin Jones, right?
Yeah.
I'm not in love with Justin Jones, but I feel like you liked him, or we liked him when we had Larry Ogunjobi. And that's what we were trying to do with this defensive line. I wouldn't have him as a starter, but I like him as that good rotational piece. What you're seeing more and more is when you have a lot of these bodies, you rotate them in and out, and they're fresh. They can just dominate the offensive linemen. So yeah, why not get a bunch of D tackles? Right? Why not try and sign a couple, and then if you can draft one, heck yeah, right?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, the Eagles, I mean, sadly their pass rush didn't do anything the last Super Bowl game, but that's what their thing. It was just rotating guys and keeping them fresh and all that stuff. So I love that. Yeah, let's pass on the drug guy and Onyemata. Might be a big stretch guy, but yeah, I think it's 100% that we at least get one defensive interior guy from free agency. And honestly, if we don't, that's pulls first red flag for me at least.
Yeah. And also, last little thing that I'll just kind of mention too, because I haven't yet, $75 million still in cap space for the Chicago Bears. Excellent stuff out there. So we can still spend a lot of money, even though that we're paying DJ Moore $20 million this year. But PayPal, let's go over to the defensive ends. And defensive ends, we obviously need some help overall with this position, where our leading person with sacks, Jaquan Brisker.
Yeah.
At safety, we need a good defensive end, and we've alluded to this a little bit. There's not like elite talent at the top, right? And I want to kind of call this guy out too, because Zadarius Smith is not actually a free agent. And I think I was kind of shocked by that. Zadarius Smith posted on Twitter that he was like, all right, I'm leaving Minnesota. Peace. Like, I'll see you all later. Walks into Minnesota's like the GM and says like, yeah, I'm demanding a release. And they're like, we're not getting rid of you. He's like, what? And they're like, no. So Zadarius Smith is definitely someone to look out for. But the top of the list is Marcus Davenport, 1 year, $12 million. Or so what is being projected is a potential 1 year, $12 million from Brad Spielberger. So maybe a trial because he's been banged up. Or Marcus Davenport, he's projecting that 1 year, 12 million. I think that's way too cheap. I think what he's looking at is, yeah, he's banged up, give him a trial. But when you look at elsewhere, like a Spot Rack has him a little bit higher, over $20 million. Let me just pull up the exact number for you, PayPal, and we'll go with Spot Rack's number instead of, because if you can get him for 1 year, 12 million, I think there's no question. You sign that deal. You already have it there, and you just have it FedEx directly to him, or you hand deliver it to him. Marcus Davenport on Spot Rack is being projected at getting 4 years, 93 million, which is 23 million per year. PayPal, are you signing? And PayPal and the chat, are you signing Marcus Davenport for $23 million a year?
Man, I mean, you talk about the 75 million we have available, right?
Yeah.
For cap. That's a big chunk. And for someone that I don't think of him as elite, like that's like really elite numbers for me to pay a guy that much. But he is a guy that plays both sides of the ball. Like he's someone that can play the entire game. He's not going to be substituted, if it's a passing down, he's not only going to be for pass rushing, he's going to be playing run and pass. I think you might have to do it solely because this is a position we need. And like you said, I wouldn't be surprised. I think probably number 2 in sacks for us was like Jack Sanborn, or even like, not a defensive front 7 person. But yeah, Marcus Davenport, you got to spend money where we need help the most. And I think we might have to sign him. But the one thing I do lean towards that is it would be nice kind of getting kind of these smaller names, so to speak, and get, 2 guys instead of just spending all money on one person. I don't know what your thoughts are, Brad, but
PayPal, I got to go with everybody's favorite Lions fan, Don Burr. He said this out in the chat. Teams are built through the draft, cheap 4 to 5 year rookie deals. You have to hit on the picks often because free agency is getting stupid with these contracts.
Yeah.
Marcus Davenport, if he's getting $23 million, now he looks really good, but when I looked at some of his highlights, some of the game film, it was funny because the Saints posted a Marcus Davenport like highlight film. And it really looked more like, who's the guy on the other side? Cam
Jordan?
Yeah, Cam Jordan.
Yeah.
It looked more like a Cam Jordan highlight film, and Marcus Davenport was just kind of cleaning up everything,
Funny.
right?
Yeah.
But I will say, watching his 2021 film when he wasn't as banged up, he was incredible. I think he was a top 10 edge rusher according to PFF, and he looked good. Yeah, number 8 overall for edge rushing, and it showed on tape. He's very physical, very powerful. I just feel like if you're signing him to that $23 million deal, like that's a huge amount of money for someone that we're essentially taking a risk for. He hasn't played over 500 snaps over the past 3 seasons, even though he can play both the run and the pass. I think for me, I'm looking at more of those bargains, more of those veterans that we could potentially bring in. And then however the draft unfolds, you draft some of those players to kind of fill in some of those gaps. But let's actually go through some of these other defensive ends too. So Marcus Davenport, like we said, up at the high. Then there's 3 other highs according to Brad Spielberger. You have Samson Ebukam, you have Yannick Ngakoue, Leonard Floyd. Actually, I think he has Leonard Floyd at 8 million, but Spot Rack has Leonard Floyd a lot higher. Then in the mid, you have Jadeveon Clowney, so that $5 to $10 million range. I think he's more on that upper side. Charles Omenihu, Arden Key, Obo Okoronkwo, Frank Clark, Rasheem Green, and then your bargain bins. You have Melvin Ingram, you have Justin Houston, Kyle Van Noy, Dwayne Smoot, DeMarcus Walker, Carlos Dunlap, Bud Dupree, Shaq Lawson, Anthony Nelson, Dante Fowler, Andrew Van Ginkel, Robert Quinn, and Carl Nassib. But PayPal, if you were trying to go for a more bargain type of a player. Is there anybody out there that jumps out to you?
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, this is not. Yeah, you don't see any like stars out here where it's like, oh yeah, you signed TJ Watt, and it's like your whole defense chains. Like he's gonna be doing everything. But yeah, I kind of love the idea. This might be kind of weird, Brett, but I love the idea of getting Jadeveon Clowney because he's kind of that run stopper that he sets the edge and he's really good at run defense. I mean, here's this first round pick. Like we thought he's gonna be everything, but he was really good at setting the edge. And kind of like pairing him with like a Charles. I don't know how to say this. I'm EU. He's from San Francisco, and he had a 20.4% pass rush win rate since 2021. So he ranks in the top 12. So getting something like that in like the $5 to $10 million range, like getting 20% pass rush win rate, like heck, I think that would be a nice little thing going on. Maybe substitute those guys out for each other or whatever the deal is. But because he's not the best at run defense. He's not terrible, but I think we'll notice signing any of these guys. We'll be like, wow, any of these guys is better than what we have right now. So
for real, it was super disappointing. I love Travis. Travis did not look good, as we know. It was sad to kind of see that, right? And I want to bring this up too. Actually, Bears Bones in the comments was saying, what is happening with Khalil Mack? Great question. Update on that. They've restructured his deal. So now it's pushing more of the money back, just like Ryan Pace would do. And because of that, he's not going to be released. So that's something that is going on. But there's a bargain bin that I guess he's technically not bargain bin by my categorization, but Obo Okoronkwo. He was a former Oklahoma Sooner, and he's 6'2", 253 defensive end. He was part of Houston's team, so he played in that 4-3, and he really looked good in that 4-3, racked up about 5 sacks. Someone that you can get for a halfway decent contract at about $6.5 million. Like we said, you don't want to overpay too much. Yes, we have the money, but if we're able to draft someone, right? I think the D line is where I personally want to try and draft someone, especially. And I know Van Ness comes up with some people. I'm not super in love with Van Ness, but I need to watch a little bit more tape on the guy. But Obo Okoronkwo looked good in that 4-3 defense, in that Lovey 4-3. So I think he's worth a shot. If it is just a 2-year deal, I think he's significantly better than Al-Qadim Muhammad. I think he can look good inside of this defense. And I think the 4-3 was more his system rather than what the Rams scheme with that 3-4 was. He's more of a hand in the dirt type of player.
Yeah. I kind of, like getting someone like that, like especially, I was kind of saying before with the Eagles, it's like this guy's on the Texans and he was kind of being that, I don't want to say star player, but he was creating stats on a team that's not very good like that.
Yeah.
I think that really shows his toughness and actually how good he is. Cause like when you start putting, good coaching staff, good players around him, how much will he shine even more, And that's where, like, I don't know about you, Brad, but I was always like the idea of getting like Yannick Ngakoue, but now looking, it's like you can get those good pass rushers for a lot, not going to say a lot cheaper, but for cheaper. Like Yannick Ngakoue is only a pass rusher. Like he's not going to help in the run game. And maybe, hey, who knows? Maybe Eberflus saw him differently and it's like he does help in the run game, or he is that, two-way player. But that's someone that's on this list where kind of almost like I am not looking at anymore. Just he might be a little too pricey.
And I think the way that I see D-line is I'd rather have multiple pieces, like I was saying before. You can have more in the gas tank. And I like the idea if you bring in Yannick, if you have other people that can play the run for him. So you literally just go, all right, Yannick, you suck at playing the run. You are a gigantic liability. But when we know they're passing, we want you out there. But I did look a little bit deeper into Yannick too. And what I don't know how he does it, but he's had one of the lowest pass rush win rates, but he still got racked up sacks. Like he just finds the quarterback, even though he doesn't get past his guy anymore. And I mean, he's going to be 28 years old. It's not like he's ancient, but he just
Mhm.
hasn't performed at that. I don't know. He still gets the numbers, but he hasn't looked like the same Yannick. And then also I believe Brandon Graham just signed a deal. He was someone that I know we talked about when we had like kind of top
Yep.
5 people. But also something I'm a big fan of. What about Justin Houston, the ageless wonder,
Yeah.
right? He still plays well at 34, and you can get him. He's projected 1 year, 4 million, and practically completely guaranteed. I like spending the extra money. You have $75 million in cap. You don't
Yeah.
have to blow it on one guy. Get some of these vets, like we were saying. Get Okoronkwo. You get Justin Houston. Yeah, and maybe add in, I don't know, like Arden Key might be a little bit too skinny, but like you talked about a Menahu, there's other
Mhm.
people you can kind of add in, and now you piece together this ferocious defensive line that
Yeah.
has multiple people that can go into it until you find that elite player. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's an
Hey, and
interesting concept.
yeah, I completely agree. Like it's weird. I kind of almost think of this is kind of, now that we have our, receiving core, maybe this is a little off topic. This is talking about offense now, but it's kind of the same deal of like getting that like veteran presence. Like, sure, they may not start. Like, I think of getting like a Robert Woods or, people been talking about getting Adam Thielen now for wide receivers. Not saying they're going to start, but have that depth, like have that fourth receiver, have that, that third string, second string, whatever, Justin Houston kind of just in that locker room. Like he's been around success before. He knows how to win and he's cheap. Like that $4 million contract is going to give a lot more benefits to your team than just signing someone that doesn't have that. I don't know, having that winning mentality and having that grit that Justin Houston has, like he's a winner. He's a winner, and I think of like quarterbacks, like it's like I remember people talking about Drew Brees of like they would get like winning habits from him, like just being around him in the building. You'd get these winning habits for these younger guys and teach them how to do these, go to the gym early in the morning and start, watching film and stuff. So I think he'd be a great addition.
Cool. So we talked about the DNs, right? Robert Quinn, we talked about this like at the very beginning of the season. When you are a speed rusher and you win with athleticism, Father Time is undefeated. Did not look good for
Yeah.
the Eagles, even in just a very specific role on a very good defense. So kind of some big red flags with that. I think this is good. Also, Torin, I feel you out there. He's saying the losing an hour is killing me right now. I agree. And actually, funny story about this. Like, my wife told me, she's like, "Oh yeah, we gain an hour of sleep." And like as a good husband, you don't question your wife. She said it so matter of fact. I took it as truth, and we stayed up like extra late because it's like, okay, we get an extra hour. Woke up, kids were jumping on us, and it was terrible. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
running not on a lot of sleep right now.
Yeah. I slept in more. I was like, okay, like I actually slept like, way more. I was like, okay, that definitely is not a thing. So yeah, maybe we lost an hour. Who knows?
Oh, we definitely lost an hour.
Yeah.
It moved forward for sure.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, so let's go over to linebackers, right? Linebackers, I mean, come on. We're Bears fans. We love our linebackers. This is where I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
Linebackers, it's deep. And I think the one that's on kind of everybody's list for the Chicago Bears is one Tremaine Edmonds. Tremaine Edmonds, PayPal, will go back to like the sign him or deny him. He's projected, according to Brad Spielberger, for is 4 years and 18.75 million a year. What are you
Oh,
thinking? And what's everyone else in the comments thinking? Is
ugh,
18.75 million a year for Tremaine Edmonds too
man.
much? Or are you
Oh,
denying him?
yeah, Brett. I'm denying him. I just he is a good player. You can't get that wrong, but paying that much, like, sorry, for a middle linebacker, I don't know if that's gonna be flying. Like, I know we're big Jack Campbell guys, and when you look at other people in this free agency of like, you could get them for a lot cheaper, and I just I don't know if I could pay that much for a middle linebacker who I agree they affect the game. Like, don't get me wrong, I hated watching Nicholas Morrow, which he was a big disappointment for me. But paying some of that much, I don't know. It's a no.
Yeah, and here's the big interesting piece about Tremaine Edmonds' contract as well, right? Spielberger is projecting 18.75. Spot Rack is projecting 11. But the big difference is Brad Spielberger really looks at all the numbers and says, this is kind of what I'm thinking that his market is going to be. And Spot Rack, a lot of their numbers are based off of previous contracts and the essentially kind of like what it's more of like an algorithmic thing. They're saying 11 million, where 11 million now we're talking.
Yeah,
right now,
yeah.
Now you're speaking my language. Let's have this discussion. But yeah, when you start talking about 18, that's a little insane. But let's go through the other linebacker free agents because, yeah, I wouldn't do that. The other linebacking free agents, we have Levante David in the high tier, projected to get about 11 million. David Long out of the Tennessee Titans, about 10 million. TJ Edwards, about 12 million. And Bobby Okereke, about 11 million. Then mid-range, Bobby Wagner, surprising just because he's a vet. About 1 year, 6.5 is what he's being projected. Leighton Vander Esch at about 6.75. Jermaine Pratt, Drew Tranquil, Cole Holcomb, and then bargains. A lot of bargains. Like we said, linebacker is not the premier position that gets all this money. The bargains under $5 million. We're talking Alex Singleton, Kaiser White, Denzel Perryman, Aziz Al-Shaair, Eric Kendricks. Two bad years in a row for Eric Kendricks, Caden Ellis, Rashawn Evans, Quincy Williams, who actually just signed, so the graphic is out of date, and Anthony Walker, Devin Bush, Alex Anzalone, Cody Barton, and Nicholas Morrow. PayPal, anybody jumping off the list already?
Yeah, I always loved getting TJ Edwards, just solely another Wisconsin linebacker. To just pair with our boy Jack Sanborn. I think it's official that Jack Sanborn's definitely going to be starting next year.
Oh, definitely. You're saying that? I still think it's up. I don't know. I love Sanborn, but I still like. I can't crown that yet.
Yeah, I think the reason why I say that is actually, on the podcast part I take, they're talking about how it was like, oh, what was a free a rookie this year that's really stepped up, and the first person that they mentioned, or like someone fun to watch, and I said like Jaquan Brisker, basically saying Jaquan Brisker is their favorite player. And then next they talked about Jack Sanborn, and then they talked about Gordon. Did not talk about Robinson, which I thought was funny. But yeah, TJ Edwards, I think that would just be another. He's a very smart player. There were some plays in the Super Bowl. Maybe I'm just being really nitpicky because it's like you were against Travis Kelce, one of the best tight ends, but he would get cooked and did not look too good against Travis Kelce. So you're not going to be guarding Travis Kelce every single game, obviously, but that's my only downside with him, I found.
Yeah, but overall, I think TJ Edwards, good, solid player, right? He can play the run, he can play the pass, and yeah, I like him as well. Bobby Okereke, or as Renewable said in the comments, Bobby O'Carrot Cake. I now can't unhear that. So thank you, Renewable. So Bobby O'Carrot Cake, I mean, he's already a Bear, right? No,
yeah,
everyone's always saying that he's already like a Bear, right? People are already kind of putting it out in pen because of the Matt Eberflus connection. Okereke, very good for the Colts. Had a very solid season last year as well, even though that Shaq Leonard went down. And And yeah, at 4 years, 11 million, you could have a good inside linebacker, a very good inside linebacker. I
Mhm.
like the fit. I think that that's a very easy thing to potentially have. I I know we could say like, well, maybe he'll take a pay cut. He's not going to take a pay cut. I feel like to play with his old coach. Players believe in themselves until after they turn 30,
Yeah.
and that's when they go, all right, I'll take a senior discount for you. So, but I also want to throw this out there. I think it'd be really interesting to bring in a vet. We've talked
Mhm.
about veteran leadership. We've talked about how important it is. And it's about how the Bears are perceived, I feel. Like Levante David, phenomenal inside linebacker, makes Devin White look good, right? Levante
Mhm.
David, he's 33 years old, and at 2 years, 11 million, that isn't terrible. That's kind of the ballpark with similar to like what Bobby Wagner got. But
Yep.
even Bobby Wagner, PFF's #1 rated linebacker. So he didn't look as elite, but he still was freaking good. It was
Oh,
still
yeah.
really good. And if you can get him for a year, that's interesting. I like the idea of bringing in a vet that can really kind of hold down, hunker down this defense. And then maybe you get like maybe Okereke and David, maybe Okereke and Wagner, like, or I always like Kaiser White, and Kaiser White is around $4 million a year. Good player, and can be fast, can definitely be an upgrade over Nicholas Morrow in my mind.
Yeah, it'd be interesting getting, yeah, like a Bobby Wagner, 'cause I wonder if they're taking this in consideration of like, yeah, we might still need like a kind of that nickel linebacker. Like we were talking about Nicholas Moore, it was that kind of nickel, like he would be guarding, these faster guys in coverage. Um, he was good for that reason. I'll give him that. But but yeah, like Bobby Wagner, like he's definitely slowed down a bit, but something that does not slow down is you know, the brain for the game, and his instincts and his tackling is still just out of this world. He just does not miss a tackle.
Yeah.
So I would love to sign him, a cheaper deal, along with like Levante David, but someone I always like Bengals players. I don't know what it is. Like they're they're they did it well. I think they're a great team to first of all just
Very
look
well
at.
coached defense. Yeah.
Yeah, very well coached. Just and kind of look how they built that defense of like signing all these kind of above average guys, like not getting the top, not getting a Tremaine Edmonds, but getting someone maybe I don't know, like a Leighton Vander Esch, getting those kind of
Mm.
lower tier, but still like above average players and just getting a bunch of them. That's kind
Yeah.
of how they built their defense. And then obviously getting rookies, and like Jesse Bates and stuff. But Jermaine Pratt, like, I mean, I was looking at his stats too. I'm like, oh my gosh, like PFF has him as the 11th linebacker. He's got the best coverage grade at a linebacker with 90.1 coverage.
Oof.
He only had it says explosive receptions. I don't know what that really means. If that was, but still, like being a coverage linebacker, and if we did get like a Bobby Wagner, pairing it up with like a Jermaine Pratt, where he could cover basically anyone. Um, and again, this guy does not miss tackles either. Just like he just missed 2 tackles in coverage. So, man, I think he would be kind of that steal of getting that mid-tier pay guy.
Yeah. Like, I think that's the big thing with Ryan Poles. Ryan Poles is an analytics guy. Ryan Poles, like, because I know that we mentioned this in the offensive free agents where it's the Bears have an offer or they have a contract out to David Montgomery, but David Montgomery wants to test out free agency. That is
Mhm.
that like Adam Rank posted about it. Like that seems to be the truth, right? And I think it's probably similar where I think what the Bears probably did is they said, "Here's your contract, Monty," and he's like, "Wait, that's way too low. I'm going to get something higher." Brian Poles with these guys, I feel is even though I would love to see them get Levante David, I still think that they're probably going to do what you're talking about, PayPal, get some of these cheaper 6 million dollar types of linebackers, and
Mhm.
yeah, kind of plug them in. Um, But yeah, like, dude, I want to see Jack Campbell. That's what I want to see. I want to see Jack Campbell though. I will.
I mean, yeah, we got 2 second rounds, so like hopefully his draft stock is definitely rising. That's the scary part. So
yeah, people finally realize he's really good. They're like, he can do it all, and he can cover.
Like, it's like, oh, he doesn't have like 4.44 speed or something. Yeah. It's like it doesn't matter. He's still fast.
He's too patient. It's like, what's that? What is that?
What does that mean? What does that mean? Sorry, he doesn't bid for play action.
Third round, definitely third round. He's too patient. He's too patient. He doesn't get fooled easily.
And that's the thing. It's like looking at, we're just talking about the edges of like, just kind of get these mid or, kind of splurge getting more guys that are kind of like above average. I mean, Cole Holcomb, I always like saying Holcomb. I don't know why.
Yeah.
He's another guy. I always kind of enjoyed watching him. I always think he's pretty good. Like he's not amazing, but he's a good player. Like I enjoy. Like I would happy to have him on our team. I mean, they have Aziz Al-Shaair. He's also up there, or I think he got signed. But a lot of just like good guys that we could sign. I mean, Eric Kendricks is out there now, but I think he'd be kind of too old and hasn't been as productive while he's been getting older.
Yeah. So I think that's about it for the linebackers. Let's close this and let's go over to the defensive backs. PayPal. We've talked about this a lot, right? Like, let's go over to the defensive backs. But before that, if you want to bet, we got March Madness coming up. Selection Sunday was today. I'm excited. It's the best time of the year. We got it's not the draft yet, but it's the second best time of the year. We got free agency going, and we also have March Madness. And if you want to get in on the action, make sure to use our link down below and use promo code unbearable at betus.com, America's favorite place to bet on sports. And if you use promo code unbearable, you get 125% back on your first deposit, and you help us out a little bit on the side as well. A win-win. And last but not least, if you are looking to get in the best shape of your life so you can play for the Chicago Bears and put the team on your back, you can go with Transparent Labs. Protein, supplements, whatever you need, they have it for you. And as the name entails, completely transparent. So they'll tell you everything that you are putting into your body. But let's go over to cornerbacks. That's enough ads for today. Let's go in to the defensive backs. I've seen it's not as big. This isn't as big as the other list that we have out here. The cornerbacks. Mm-hmm. There's really kind of 3 high-priced free agents. There's one that I don't have the numbers on, but I kind of wanted to just project it myself. The high-priced people, 10 plus. You have Jamel Dean, you have James Bradbury, you have Byron Murphy, that will be kind of commanding the bigger contracts. Jamel Dean's deal is looking like it might be more 4 years, $17 million. How are we feeling? Sign or deny Jamel Dean, who's arguably the best corner in this class at $17 million a year?
Oh, see, that's the thing. He is a pretty gosh darn good cornerback. I mean, you talk about he's physical corner. I mean, he can stop the run on the edge and, also, pass coverage. But, man, 17, it's just so weird. As well as things, I got to start crunching the numbers in my head of like, okay, if we spend 17 here, can we spend this much here? Yada, yada, yada. I think this one might be kind of the one I'm like, yeah, go ahead and spend that 17 on Jamel Dean. I think he's completely worth it. He's kind of that underrated, like he's not really talked about because, I mean, he doesn't really get thrown to too much. He's not getting that, those crazy interceptions, like, you think about the guy, Trevon Diggs and stuff, but
yeah,
he's locking up his guy and he's going to lock up the edge on the run on his side of the ball.
I agree with you as well. I like him. I like getting a cornerback. I like getting a veteran corner, right? Because otherwise, I mean, our boy Christian Gonzalez is probably going to be available at 9.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like,
that would be amazing if we got him.
That'd be great. But also, I think this is truly a spot that if you're spending 17 million, 16 million on him, I think that that's a fair market deal. I don't think that that's over like all the people that we've been talking about, right? Tremaine Edmonds, 18 million. Davenport, 23 million. Like, that's a lot of overpay. And I think 17, Dean is a very good corner, a starter that can kind of give you that. And then you move a Kyler Gordon into the slot. And I think that's probably the bigger question out here too. Because what do the Bears think that Kyler Gordon is? Because if they think that Kyler Gordon is a slot, then you need an outside guy. But you got to kind of hope that they think that he's an outside guy because the slot people, they're cheap. Slot people come cheap. And then you can develop Kyler Gordon on the outside. You can also draft a slot person in the 3rd round, in the 4th round. They drop because of their size. We talked about Tomlinson, the corner out of TCU, that he's a very good undersized corner that you can get in the 3rd round. And he can instantly be probably your starter at that slot corner position. So I think that's the question I think the Bears need to ask themselves is where does Kyler Gordon fit in all of this? And also Jalen Johnson after a year, are we keeping him? Are we extending him? What's the fate of him? Does this team like him? Because now this defense, it seems like they really need to focus in on their defensive backs and bring in some people. But let's continue through this list though. The mid-range, Byron Jones, I put him out there. This is actually purely speculatory by me. I was leaning towards high or mid to the 5 to 10. I was looking in Patrick Peterson when he broke out into the free agent market. He was getting an $8 million a year deal. So I was like, maybe Byron Jones, he's up there in age, didn't have a great season last year. Is he kind of in that 8 million? I think he's going to teeter on like 8 to 12. But yet again, I'm not a cap guru. But let's go with, again, there's Cam Sutton, Jonathan Jones, a lot of speculation with the Bears having interest in Jonathan Jones, and projection is about $6.5 million a year for the 29-year-old corner. Then you have Shaquille Griffin, or as I have on the graphic, Shaquille Griffin, Rocky Shaquille, and Rocky Sin, the defensive back. I've seen him kind of range all over the place. Marcus Peters in your bargain bins, Patrick Peterson, Emmanuel Mosley, I don't fully buy that. I think that was more of like a trial. I've seen him in the high range and I've seen him in the bargains. This is where the defensive free agents just kind of go bonkers, where he could literally get 10 plus million or like 2. Bryce Callahan, Sean Murphy Bunting, Troy Hill, Anthony Brown, Eli Apple, Danny Johnson, and Mike Hughes. PayPal, what say you? Anybody jump out to you?
Yeah, I always thought of Rock Yesson, obviously, because he's got a cool name, but he played for the Colts. And you got me thinking, Brad. It's just like, we have to really see where Gordon can play in this defense and where they really like him, because I think that will depend if we do wait in the draft and get like a slot, because no need to pay Byron Murphy for all that money. Because he's I think he's over. I think he's overpriced.
I agree with that. I don't know why. Like, I saw multiple articles saying Byron Murphy is like the guy that's going to get wholly overpay.
Yeah, because he's like a big name, and like I'm like, oh my gosh, he's great, good, right? And then you really look, and he's like, oh, he didn't really do very well, and he's like, he was decent on the Cardinals, so nothing crazy. And Rock Ya-Sin is kind of someone that would just be interesting to pick up. He played with the Colts, kind of 6 foot, 190 corner, so not too huge, but a pure outside corner if Gordon is okay in the slot. But reunite him with Eberflus. They did get rid of him, so I wonder if Eberflus was like, I don't like this Rock Ya-Sin guy, let's trade him. Like we'll trade him for, ironically, Yannick Ngakoue was who he got traded for. So I wonder if that was a thing. That's just kind of a speculation, but if it wasn't, then let's get Rock Ya-Sin and see if Eberflus really liked him.
Yeah, exactly. Rock Ya-Sin, I don't know. I think that he's going to get I think he might get over 10 million, even though that in the graphic, like we're talking about in that mid range. And I kind of side with the people in the comments where when we're talking about Kyler Gordon,
Yeah.
I think that's the big question. But with a lot of this, I think honestly, I'd be curious if they just like keep him on the outside. And because of that, do you just draft someone, right? Like
Mhm.
draft some people out there, bring in a nickel like that. I like the idea of it. I'm leaning towards maybe we don't touch any of these players. If Emmanuel Mosley you can get for like a 1-year prove it deal, by all means. I mean, the Bears have shown interest in bringing in corners for those 1-year deals where it's like, you want to prove something? We'll see what we can get out of you, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
the corner out of Iowa that I can't remember his name off the top of my head because it's very difficult to pronounce. But they brought in a lot of those players, and maybe he's someone that you get kind of cheap, right? But
Mhm.
that's about it. And also too, you can kind of see how the draft shakes out, and maybe you can get some, right? Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, let's go over to the last position group then.
Let's do
Last
it.
position group. If we didn't think that we needed a corner, PayPal, let's go over to the safeties because I think the big question is like, did I need to create a graphic for this? Out there with the safeties because just so people know, the bargain, like the high price, obviously Jesse Bates and Chauncey Gardner Johnson. Then we go to the mid-level players to that 5 to 10 million. Jordan Poyer might actually make a little bit more than 10. His number was kind of all over the place. Von Bell, Jimmy Ward, Julian Love, Taylor Rapp, Juan Thornhill, Adrian Amos, Donovan Wilson, John Johnson, Marcus Epps, and the bargain bins, Rodney McLeod, Nick Scott, Deron Harmon, Deshaun Elliott, Deshaun Gibson Sr., Kareem Jackson, Nasir Adderley, Mike Edwards, and Terrell Edmonds. Are, are we getting a safety? like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, okay, maybe we will, like, draft one, get a younger
yeah,
guy
some
that can,
depth.
yeah, get some depth of, like, yeah, let's try and think about the future of, like, okay, Eddie Jackson's getting old, maybe that will be a guy that can maybe, replace him or something, but when you look at all these guys, yeah, sure, like, there's some good names out there. I mean, I always really like Jordan Poyer, he's getting old, though. Um I mean, Jimmy Ward is also very talented. Julian Love and like Taylor Rapp are both 25, so maybe get a younger guy, but I
Ah.
I I don't see us literally spending any money in this. There's no need to spend money in this.
Yeah, I feel like when people look at like I don't know the safeties going through this, it's like, yeah, they would have to be pinching pennies, right? Like if you cut
Oh
Eddie
yeah.
Jackson, like they're not going to cut him. And I brought this up earlier, like when we did it during the midseason. It's like, all right, he's coming off of an injury. It'd be really interesting. And it was like the total, like, okay, Jesse Bates is younger. You could potentially, but you don't do that. You don't do
Hmm.
that, especially since, and I don't think the Bears would ever do that because Eddie Jackson really became a great mentor for the team, right? Like for Jaquan Brisker, they had something good going where when the defense was bad, they were the only two bright spots when Jack Sanborn
Yeah.
wasn't out there, right?
Oh yeah.
And like especially in the cover two, you need to have that chemistry with your compadre, right? To be able to pass people off and let people kind of just run like to know where everyone's at. I really like it. So
Yeah. Yeah. And this is I mean, if we didn't have Jaquan Brisker, I think this has been a perfect time. Like, hey, maybe we get Adrian Amos. Maybe we bring back Eddie Jackson, Adrian Amos, because that was a fun duo to watch back in the day. Um, but
event
now,
would be interesting. Like
yeah.
I think it still begs the point, like your boy DHC, like what do
Hmm.
they think about him? What do they saw a lot of Elijah Hicks due to injury last year, right?
Yeah.
Like, do they but I agree with you. I think that it's really going to be more of a depth thing. Maybe they take a flyer on someone in the draft, like later on, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely nothing early.
Yeah. Definitely not. Don't spend money on these guys. And yeah, because this is the bright spot of the defense. And Brisker, I has been just one of the best free agents or guys to come out of the draft for us, and he's fantastic. I mean, like I was saying before, Eberflus and Poles just absolutely like light up when they start talking about him, just because he was so fun and was developing throughout the season.
For sure. So I think that's about it from the defensive side of the ball. Just going through some of the comments. We have Alex Stark, a Panthers fan, saying best of luck. Appreciate it. Take good care of DJ. Appreciate it. Hopefully, like that's what we're hoping for, is that he does something great out there. Jay Saunders is saying DHC has been with the team since like 2017. Yeah.
Hey,
I would even say longer probably too, man.
He's still producing. He's still producing. So that's all that matters. He's the Sherrick McManus. You know,
he is.
He's Sherrick McManus. Like he comes in and you're like, man, that guy's washed. Like he's too old to do anything still, right? And then he comes in. I mean, at the safety spot, obviously, Sherrick McManus was the corner, but like he just comes in and you're like, dude, like he got dude, so you got another interception. You know, he just does it every year somehow.
Yeah, I do think though, like when it comes to the depth, right? Like, he is up there in age. He's over 30, and his bones are creaking now. So I think definitely trying to find someone that can kind of round out some of that roster, and that's where the draft is key, right?
Yeah.
The draft is key, and PayPal.
Hey, and undrafted guys, undrafted free agents.
Better believe it. Yeah, better believe it. I'm excited because we also sign good undrafted free agents, so that's what I'm excited about. But PayPal, tomorrow's the day, ladies and gents. Free agency begins. It's going to be absolutely nuts. Probably not right out of the gate, but first day, there's already rumors saying that Mike McGlinchey is going to be the first one that has a deal. Is that going to be with the Bears? Got to stay tuned. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening, and we'll be able to break it all down for you here on the Unbearable Sports Podcast. Make sure to download it if you are a big fan of podcasts. Make sure to rate it 5 stars. Even if you don't listen to podcasts, it helps us out tremendously. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we're out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a